There's someone here and it's not the pizza man.
I've got one just like that.
A Flying V. You got a red Flying V. I want a Gibson Flying V like Kirk Hammett from Metallica uses. He is my favorite guitar hero. I mean, I asked Mom and Dad to get one for my birthday, but, you know, Gibsons are really expensive, so getting it all cheaper to learn.
Excuse me.
Okay, Kirk's doing a really good try.
Can I help you?
I need to come home now. This is Mommy and Daddy's house. They're dead.
Oh my God. I'm so sorry.
I'm really sorry about what happened with your parents. But you don't live here anymore, okay? It's time for you to leave.
They won't let me play it loud. I need to play it loud.
You need to leave now.
Dad?
Ding dong.
Hello?
Oh, yes. Hi. I'm here because I used to live here and I'd like to get into your bed with your kids. Is that okay?
Well, I don't have any kids, seeing as how I'm a 14-year-old girl and super trusting, so I'm going to leave this door open and take everything you say for granted and think you're a really kind human being. Do you want to talk to my parents? I don't really want to talk to my parents.
No, I just want to hit you with this meat hammer. Here we go.
Oh, that's cool. How are you doing tonight?
Did I say meat hammer? I meant meat claw or
Cleaver?
claw hammer? Claw
Meat
hammer is the
cleaver?
word I'm looking
Claw
for.
hammer.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Meat hammer. Well, I guess we know the title of the episode. Hey, everybody.
Do we, though?
No, we don't. We'll find something better. Don't worry. This is the Old Boys Podcast. And with me, as always, is...
Dude, there were so many, speaking of last week's, or the one I just edited, the one that's out right now, the first episode of the Spooktoberfest, the Deep Dark Sling Hole. There were so many good fucking titles for that. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I finally settled on Sling Hole, but like we just said so much.
That's the only real reason that we do the podcast is because we enjoy making up the titles.
Yes. I mean, if we didn't have the titles, we probably wouldn't do anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's Dan, by the way.
Hi. I like to fantasize that I'm a 14-year-old girl opening the door for Pruitt Taylor Vince, who is in this film.
Yes. And I'm Jared. And
Yes.
like I said, this is a podcast. It's a movie podcast. We review movies, usually on Netflix. But, you know, sometimes we just do whatever the fuck we want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But this time around, it was on Netflix. It is
But
our
yeah, this time
final
we did conform.
week of Spookoween, Spooktober, Spooky House.
So spooky.
We had watched a film called The Devil's Candy. It was Jared's assignment this time around, and I'm kind of excited to talk about it.
Yes. So before we get into that...
Oh, yes.
I do want to hear your thoughts on it. I want to tell you about a movie I saw recently.
Please do. I cannot wait.
So, at work, I had a lot of people recommending this film to me. It's called Hold the Dark. Have you heard of it?
I wanted to watch it because the Netflix trailer looks relatively interesting. But then again, for me, okay, so what happened was...
What had happened was...
The Netflix plot description and then the trailer that plays are so different from each other.
Yes.
That I'm like,
yes.
I don't know if I want to fucking watch this.
This movie, it's classic switcheroo because let me read the premise to you.
And are you going to spoil it? Please tell me you're going to spoil it so I don't have to fucking watch it.
I am going to spoil the
good.
shit of this movie because I don't think anyone should watch it. It's also based off of a book that apparently they did follow pretty closely to the book. So the book also makes no fucking sense too. So after the deaths of 3 children suspected to be killed by wolves, Arthur Russell Core is hired by the parents of a missing 6-year-old boy to track down and locate their son in the Alaskan wilderness. You heard me correctly. An author.
Yeah, I was going to say, whenever my child goes missing, my first choice would be the FBI, but they don't handle things like that just yet, you know.
Or
You
a wolf
go-
hunter, somebody who knows how to hunt a wolf, not just some fucking author. Because apparently he had written about his experience where he had to kill a wolf or something, and the lady was like, "Oh, I want to pick this person to come and do this." But what's really going on? A few people in Alaska did have their kids taken away by wolves, but the real thing that's going on is that the woman that hired this man, she is in an incestuous relationship with her own brother, who is the husband.
Oh.
And she actually killed her own son out of grief, I guess, that of their union of love.
He's a weird boy.
Yes. And the whole Hold the Dark wolf thing is the dad who comes home from war is just a killing machine. And he just goes around, he puts on a wolf mask and just kills every fucking person he ever meets, except for the main character, in the most ridiculous ways. Like, none of it makes sense. There's a man who even saves his life because he had gotten shot. It's his best friend that he's known since childhood. And he fucking kills that guy. And the guy even tells him, like, why are you going to try to kill me? Like, you're my best friend. Like, this doesn't make any sense. And he stabs him in the head with a screwdriver. And that's most of the film, is like extreme graphic violence that doesn't make any sense. You just don't understand why anything is happening at all. And they're just kind of like, I don't know, incest. That justifies it, right? Incest. So in a way, if I feel like some of these themes could be interesting to you, Dan, of like the chaos of it all, but altogether, it's, as a whole, it's such a boring...
Well, now that you brought up the whole incest thing, I may go and watch it now.
It just feels
anyway.
vapid.
But,
it's a stupid fucking movie. It really
yeah,
is
like
terrible.
The opposition of what I saw in the trailer versus what I saw in the synopsis, it just kind of really turned me off. I also watched another movie, which I don't know, I never assigned it. I'm kind of glad I didn't assign it now that I'm reflecting upon it. But I watched a film called Anon. It's a Netflix original.
Oh, no.
Did you like it? Or have you seen it?
No, I haven't seen it. Oh, no, I was thinking of something. I was thinking of the Bitcoin heist movie.
No. Anon is like, it's a bad movie, but it has an awesome premise. They could have taken it so many different places, but it's like everybody in the future has like these chips in their eyeballs that make them like instant data searchers, and they can just pick up any data from anybody they look at. And that is so cool the way they did that. But there's an anomaly where it's like a person who's a hacker, who's an assassin for hire, that's like, you know, kind of cleaning up the streets, deleting their files because everything is on file. So she's able to hack into everybody's brain and get rid of things.
That's
and then,
just like Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah, right. And that, like, I eat that shit up. But like, this film is so white collar and not cyberpunk at all. It's the direct opposite of cyberpunk, where it's like, cyberpunk is like, it's high tech. No, but cyberpunk is high tech and low class. This is high class and high tech, and it's slow as hell. And they could have done so much more with it. And here's another thing. You can tell that they didn't really have a lot of ideas. The amount of sex scenes in this film, and just like saving just the implications of you can save the file of you looking at the sex that's happening is just ridiculous.
That's also a Black Mirror episode too.
Right. And because there was so much, you can tell that the narrative was just suffering. It's like, we don't have any more ideas, so here's some sex.
Wow. Yeah, that's sad.
It was limitless potential and it just became so boring and
they just
contrived.
did nothing with it.
Yeah. Which, I mean, think about what Ghost in the Shell is and what it became, and like how much, I don't know, Ghost in the Shell is crazy because they did so little, but it produced so much. This one, they had produced a lot and they could have taken it even further, but they just didn't.
That kind of sounds like the new Venom movie. That's what I've been hearing too. Is it's a pretty big hot mess. They could have done a lot more, but in a sense, I guess it's still enjoyable. But I haven't seen it yet, so I don't know.
Right.
I don't know if I ever will, because like, why see a PG-13? I already got tricked with RoboCop PG-13. That was not good. So stop trying to trick me, movies. God damn it.
Well, I mean, I think, and bear in mind, this is just a theory. I think a lot of what is happening in terms of this PG-13 nonsense that we're getting is there's this surgence of really fantastic shows on television that have to be PG-13. So like The Sopranos, Breaking Bad, like they are stretching it to, like they're stretching an R rating so far out thin that it can be considered a PG-13 rating for television, and people are kind of taking that aspect and trying to apply it to movies to get a PG-13 rating for some reason.
Yeah, because I mean,
to make it more marketable, but it's just failing.
Well, here's the deal. It's actually not, because fucking that movie did really well. That new Venom movie made a shit ton of money and everyone hated it, and they're going to make more because it made a lot of money. That kind of shit, sometimes it just gets through and they're like, well, we heard you loud and clear. We're going to keep making these films. So I'm sure the second one's going to tank hard, like no one's going to see it. But this first one made a ton of money. So if they can get away with it, they will. But yeah, fuck. What are you going to do? They've been doing this for a while, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about The Devil's Candy. Oh, yeah. Dan, please describe to me what the fuck The Devil's Candy is.
Absolutely, my friend. The Devil's Candy essentially is about a house that exists in Texas on the outskirts of Austin. And essentially, who resides in this house is this guy, this grown man-child who is played by Pruitt Taylor Vince, and then he ends up killing his parents, and then the house gets on the market. He goes to the insane asylum. A struggling artist and his family buys the house.
Yes.
And he is kind of coming up. He's like making commissions, and he's getting the money to actually pay for this house. And eventually, he starts hearing the same thing that the original guy heard. So basically the original guy heard like these kind of demon voices that are just plaguing his mind.
Gregorian chants of the demons.
So the guy in the house still kind of, or he begins to hear those, and he begins painting these horrifying pictures. And he eventually gets, it's so weird that it kind of comes full circle to Deep Dark. Like this film has like a lot of echoes of Deep Dark in it. And like the way you get, your muse going, and the way you get like, your art flowing essentially. So he gets successful off of these strange demonic paintings. But the insane asylum guy, he kind of escapes or comes out, and then he tries to get back into his house and ends up, bonding very strangely with this girl. But his whole thing is he's a serial killer who kidnaps and murders children because he's sacrificing to the devil because it's his candy. That's where they get the name from.
Yeah, what did you think the Devil's Candy was before you actually found out what it was?
I don't know, because there was just so, I mean, like metal music was like a pretty prominent figure, so I'm like, metal music is the Devil's Candy.
I thought it was like art or something. I thought art was going to actually play a more important role.
Well, I mean, if you consider music to be art, it really does. Like this music, or so the film is like just bogged down by a whole bunch of metal songs. Like Metallica's in here. Sun O is in here. You don't pronounce the O. It's just Sun is in there. One of the characters is actually wearing their shirt at one point. Yeah. So first impression, Jared.
Well, Dan, I thought this movie was okay.
Okay.
I was enjoying it in the beginning, and then there's some stuff later on in the film that it got kind of hard just plot-wise, like how the story was written. Some stuff just wasn't really connecting. I enjoyed the whole dynamic between him trying to pick like his career over his kids, that kind of a thing, which was covered kind of in, was it Deep Dark? Mm-hmm. I thought the dynamic between him and his family, I don't know if it was the writing or what, but his connection with his daughter, I don't believe very well. There was a weird thing there. Like what daughter is like super into their dad? What, she's supposed to be like 16? Mm-hmm. She's like super... Because they're both in the heavy metal or whatever, and they're like best friends. And I'm like, nobody's best friends with their dad when they're that old. I don't know. But then later on, like towards the end, the film gets hilariously bad. Like that ending is fucking really terrible, which we will get into. But overall, I think the movie, it's all right. It felt unfocused and weird to me, which will make more sense once we get into it. I think this film is trying to be Deathgasm. Which is also came out in the same year. That's funny, 2015. And I think that movie did what this is trying to do a lot better, in my opinion. So, what did you think, Dan?
So, I mean, I agree with the whole idea of your argument of focus. Like, I do think that the film's weakest point was its focus. However, I will say that the theme structure and the way in which they represented certain ideas was pretty spot on, because this is not a film about art. In my opinion, I think this is more a film about mental illness. And if you consider that to be what it is, like schizophrenia, like hearing voices, this film becomes this really strange, ambiguous tale of, you know, what is a voice in your head versus what is supernatural, things like that. So, and it kind of comes out in the serial killer's behavior, but then it also comes out in that guy's art. And what happens in this film, the way I'm reading it, is it becomes very, very, just like you can't read through the ambiguity, because you have basically, I'm going to preface this now, this film does a very good job of blurring the lines between schizophrenia and paranormal activity so well. It's like, am I really hearing voices, or am I really going fucking crazy? Like, which one is it? And the reason I say that is because two characters are suffering from the same exact thing, but it's almost believable that they can be suffering from the same exact thing.
Well, one would have a bigger implication than the other, because so you have the killer, the creepy killer, played by Pruitt Taylor Vince, who I would like to say right now is fantastic.
Well, no, every single fucking
amazing.
Every single thing he's ever been in. Like he's in my favorite episode of the X-Files. He's the bad guy from my favorite episodes of the X-Files. It's called Unruhe, if you want to go check it out. Season 4, episode 5, I think, somewhere around there.
Episode fuck.
But he's also in another film about dissociative identity disorder called Identity, where he plays the guy who's on trial, but like he has all these different personalities that are played by people like John Cusack, things like that. That film is fantastic too. So it's like, that's kind of why I got the vibe of this kind of weird mental disorder, because I've seen that film before.
He is so good. There's a scene where he goes to the hotel, and that entire scene of him staring at the window, and he comes to the door and he turns around and he gets really close and closes the door like in the weirdest way possible. And he like creeps up to the counter. I'm like, this guy is amazing.
Very good at playing that. But have you noticed his eyes, how they kind of dart back and forth?
Oh yeah.
That's I forgot what it is, but it's like an affliction that he has. Like that's what his eyes do.
Oh, I thought he was just doing it.
No, like that's how he kind of got his, like that's why he's always playing these kinds of characters.
I gotcha. I will say all the acting in this movie was great.
Yes.
Ethan Embry, who this is hilarious. Okay, so. He's basically looks like Jesus in this movie. He's got this long beard. Which is
not on accident at all. It's totally on purpose, especially at the end whenever you were saying it gets fucking insane and hilariously bad.
And he already looks like a scary dude in this movie, so you can actually see the transition of him going crazy. You're like, he already kind of looks scary. But what's hilarious is my girlfriend didn't know it was Ethan Embry. And when she found out after we got done watching the film, she just kept saying his name over and over again. She's like, Ethan Embry. And I'm like, yeah, it's Ethan Embry. She's like, Ethan Embry. It's like, yes, it's him. She just couldn't believe it. But yeah, everyone acting-wise did good. Leland Orser is in this, who I love. He was in a movie. He was only the preacher. He was the preacher.
Oh
on
yeah,
TV.
yeah. He was in Faults. He was in Faults. He's the guy from the Bone Collector, the bad guy from the Bone Collector.
Yeah, he's awesome. I'm like, be in the movie more, but I guess he only had a
But
small
I
role.
liked his character. I liked his purpose. Like he was a perfect person for that role, I think.
And then the guy who played Leonard, the art dealer, he's really cool. I don't know his last name. Tony. Amendola, yeah, I've seen him everywhere as a character actor. He's wonderful. But it's like they had these small cameo roles from like really great character actors, and I'm like, oh, cool. So in that respect, I liked it. What bothered me? I mean, there's just a few things, but the whole idea of the killer and his story, and then the artist, and then hearing the voices, because I thought this whole film was going to be about a man moves into a house, hears devil voices, and let's see how that affects him and his family. How does he deal with it? But it really became about kind of that, and then the psychopath killer going out and killing people.
Right.
And I almost felt like his addition was an intrusion to what I thought the plot was going to be. But also, I'm really happy that that character was there, because I like Pruitt as an actor. He was great in the film. So did any of that bother you at all?
No, because like I mean, if you look at it from the lens where I'm looking at it from, where it's not about devils and shit, but more about like mental illness, it's like these two people are channeling the same mental illness in two different ways. One of them is extremely unhealthy, whereas the other one, you can still feel it's unhealthy, but he's doing it through an impressionistic painting, which, by the way, turns into one of the coolest, most horrifying paintings I've ever seen in my life.
Yes. So, okay.
Holy
I will
God.
say this too. The painting later on, the second one he makes, is the only time I did feel uneasy. Like,
oh yeah,
that painting was fucking terrifying.
and they do a good job of showing it a lot.
Yeah. And it just gets
still
worse.
making it interesting.
Because the first painting he does of that upside down cross was boring as shit.
Yeah.
And then that next one, it's like, so he got an art commission to paint like these butterflies or whatever. That was not very good. And then he decided to paint over it with like the faces of people that have been killed by the murderer.
And then he paints his daughter on fire.
Yes.
And then there's like this weird Cerberus / Satan figure that comes in, like it has like 5 eyes. Oh my God, it is crazy to look at.
Did you pick up that the art company is named after
Belial.
Belial. Belial makes me think of Diablo.
Well, yeah, as soon as I saw that, I'm like, yeah, that's cheesy. But then here's where it comes in. It's like, that's why I kind of like this film a lot, because of the strange connection to the supernatural of the Judeo-Christian mythos versus speaking in tongues and being schizophrenic. Those lines get crossed all the time.
Yeah.
And depending on who you ask, it could be a ritualistic religion thing, or it could be, you need to be on meds. But either way, like, that's what I kind of focused on. Like, those lines keep getting crossed throughout the entire film. And then they incorporated the idea of, like, I mean, metal is not necessarily a character in this film. It's just like kind of a bedrock to lay on, where it's like these people are living in the Bible Belt of Texas, and they kind of are already social outcasts because they're fucking metalheads. I mean, Austin is a pretty weird place, but anywhere else besides Austin, where they are on the outskirts, they're going to be looked at like they're fucking insane. Now, then that kind of leads to this connection to Pruitt, because Pruitt, his character, he only has one way to make them stop, make the voices in his head stop, the Gregorian devil chant, essentially. And that's to play his guitar as loud as humanly possible.
Is that what's going on?
Yeah. He's drowning out the voices, and that's the only thing that stops them.
Oh, I thought he was doing that because the devil was telling him to do it.
No, he's like, this is the only thing. He says something along the lines of, like, this is how I can make it not hear. It's like, I got to go louder.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't understand. Because, like, in the beginning, he's playing the music really loud, and his mom comes in and is like, I'm going to take you back to the mental institution, blah, blah, blah. And then I guess so we're going to talk about that. Dang it, I had other stuff I wanted to talk about. Did you think that there was ambiguity between the mental illness and it just being Satan stuff?
Yes, and that's my large point. It's like, that's why I like this film so much, because you can't fucking tell. Even though they both have the same affliction in terms of the Gregorian chants, it's almost like they are, like I said, they're channeling it differently, but at the same time, whenever you do hear those, I don't know. I'm kind of X-Files out, where it's like, I want to believe it so bad. I want to believe there's, the Satan, but I also want to believe that it's a mental affliction. I want the idea of mental illness to be crossed by this weird mythos, because it is, in my opinion, where it's like, why do you think people who are, possessed by Satan or a demon have never spoken Latin a day in their life, and then all of a sudden they can just recite Latin? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like a mental breakdown of speaking in tongues, but at the same time, it's like, there's no fucking way.
Mm-hmm. Or people who get sleep paralysis and they think a devil or an angel visited them.
So there's so many crossovers to, like, these medical conditions that are still largely mysteries versus the things in any kind of pagan or any religious idea. Like, so many different cultures have so many explanations for the things that are not explained, and science still can't explain. So there's always going to be this strange paranormal crossover that science is automatically going to debunk, but they never really have concrete evidence otherwise. They just
Truth is out there, motherfucker.
Exactly. So, and that's why I like this film so much, is I think it teeters that line very, very well.
So I didn't get that from this film, though. Like, I didn't think that they convincingly made me believe, well, is this mental illness or is this devil stuff? I always thought it was devil stuff. There was never a point in my mind where I was like, is this maybe because like, okay, you could maybe think that for the killer, but once they start sharing, like once he starts painting the murders and he has like the second sight, you know what I mean? Where he's like at the end where he finds out where the bodies, like the rest of the bodies are and stuff. That weird connection, I'm just like, okay, it's definitely devil stuff, right? I mean,
I agree 100%, but let's say that this is a documentary and the events are filmed in real time. Who the fuck is going to believe that it's the devil stuff?
But we as the audience know.
We the audience know, but do we really know as the audience? That's why I like this, because this film make me think about like the whole meta aspect of like, whenever you see something this insane, do you ever believe it, or do you write it off as just like, I don't want to really think about this anymore?
But okay, so then the implications at the end of the film, the family does live, right? Mm-hmm. And the dad is still there. Does he still have mental illness? Does this mean that the dad's just going to get worse? Because then that ending is bad.
Yeah.
He's just going to get progressively worse.
Okay, so think about this for a second. So the ending of the film, let's just talk about this right now. Well, you set up the ending because you said that this is like kind of where it fell apart for you, because it is pretty laughably bad. I will say this. Like the CGI in this is terrible, and it's completely unrealistic.
Throughout the film, we have the dad is struggling with his art, and he is channeling the serial killer. It's almost like he's against his will making the art, and he keeps forgetting his daughter and his family, and he forgets to pick her up, and he's like, shit, I gotta take care of her more. And his daughter has already been almost kidnapped by the murderer. Mm-hmm. She has been kidnapped, actually.
Also, we forgot to establish, so like the guy, he comes to the house, like what we were making fun of at the beginning of this is he comes to the house, and he starts talking to the daughter, and the daughter's just like, yeah, okay, yeah, whatever, you can come in. And then he notices that she has like a Flying V tattoo, a Gibson Flying V tattoo on her arm. And he's like, oh, I have one that's just like that. And she's like, you have a Flying V? I want one of those so bad. And then the dad chases him away. And then the next morning, the guitar and the amp are on the front lawn. And she's like, oh, can we keep it? Like it's a fucking dog. And because dad fucks up so bad and leaves her at school, she convinces him to keep, the thing that was a gift from this creepy dude that just showed up one day. So that's kind of set up for the ending, but keep going.
So we've already established that, and the cops are at their house trying to like look after them while they try to get into witness protection. But the killer goes into a gas station and buys a big tank of gas and one lighter. And I'm like, okay. Wouldn't you think the guy selling this would be like, what's going on?
Immediately, yes.
Maybe ask a question or two. So then all we hear is screaming outside. And then
this scene was rough. Like you hear a crunch, and then you hear just blood-curdling screams. I'm like, oh, God. Somebody is wedged in between a car.
Why does the mom want to go outside? I'm like, that's crazy.
Yeah, and then they finally go out, and then you see the policewoman who's just like wedged, like pinned in between cars, and she's still alive, screaming at the top of her lungs. It's so hard to watch.
But for some reason, so there's two cops. One cop is pinned between two cars. She's out, right? The other cop is just on the ground, and he's got bloody hands, and he can't walk. And we don't know why. Like, why? What happened to him? And then his gun is like 20 feet away from him, and he's crawling to his gun. I was just like, how did you lose your gun? They don't just fly out. I mean, they're in a holster. It's like locked in. I didn't get that at all. Because like the whole time he was crawling away, I was like, just turn around and get your gun and shoot him. But he was going to his gun. So I was like, I guess, I don't know. So he kills them both. He takes the gun, and I love how, like, flim-flammy he uses the gun, because he doesn't know how to use a gun. Mm-hmm. This is like a big ogre guy. He's like a man-child. So when he goes into the house and he fights them, he's, like, shooting it randomly everywhere, because the dad's trying to fight him. So the dad gets shot. He falls down to the ground. He's bleeding, and he passes out.
That was super surprising to me. I'm like, holy shit, dad just died.
This is another Jesus allegory, I believe, because he dies and comes back.
Okay, so the Jesus allegory we're going to be talking about quite a bit. Because I think it really does play into what my big argument for this film is.
I feel like you're making a stronger argument already, because I'm like thinking in this context now, the religious aspect and then the mental illness thing, I just didn't factor in. I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of making sense. So the woman also gets shot, the mom, and then he takes the daughter upstairs, and he's like in the bed with her, but they're standing on the bed, and he lights a fire all around the bed. And this all could have been cool, but the CGI fire was pretty bad.
Oh my God. And if you're this close to a fucking fire, number one, the bed would not take that long to just ignite.
Yeah.
Number two, even if your bed is not igniting that close to a fire, you're not gonna survive it. Like, you're gonna pass out.
Everyone is passed
you're
out.
dead.
Yeah.
But they spend so much time, like there's so much screen time in this blazing hot gasoline started fire, which is impossible. So this one was pretty hard for me to suspend my disbelief a bit.
Nobody coughs. No one makes a sound.
Yeah, you'd pass out from all the fucking smoke.
The smoke didn't affect them at all.
So Dad finally comes in. So Dad climbs up through the window.
With one arm.
With one arm.
He's been shot.
Because he's been shot. And then he kicks open the window to a room that has already been set ablaze. The oxygen has been sucked out. So I don't know if you've heard of a thing called backdraft. It's a whole movie with Nicolas Cage and Kurt Russell in it. Or is Nick Cage in it? I know Kurt Russell's
Nick Cage
anyway.
is in every movie.
Yeah. So backdraft essentially is the term for whenever you open a door for a burning building, flame consumes oxygen. So whenever you let oxygen in, the flame rushes the fuck out. So this guy breaks open the window and nothing happens. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
He would have been dead on the fucking second story. Like, he would have fallen on the ground.
And he beats up that guy with one arm with a bullet wound. It's just so many crazy things.
Yeah. Then what does he do? He fucking takes that Gibson Flying V that the bad guy gave to the girl and then breaks it over his head and then stabs the motherfucker in the heart. And then this is where he looks like Jesus the most. Something about it just makes him look like, God triumphing over evil. But then that raises so many questions where it's like, Jesus spoke in the language, like that kind of Gregorian chant, like the Aramaic chant almost. So it's like they both have very similar things. And then a lot of the time, you have like the ginger hair being attributed to Satan.
Holy shit. What if devil wasn't even talking to him? Because why would the devil tell him about the kids or where the kids are and that they need help?
Mm-hmm.
Because he even tells his wife, he's like, there's these kids that are inside of me and they're trying to get out. And those are the dead bodies in the suitcases underground. Why would the devil want him to find those?
Yeah, so you have that, and then the whole idea of delusions of grandeur, like being a prophet almost because of what he's drawing. Not drawing, but painting. So there's so many weird crossovers between mental illness and that, but then also you have the idea that metal music is the bedrock for this, and metal music has ever since the 1980s with the Satanic Panic has been in long, terrible standing with the Judeo-Christian faith because they think it's just devil music, where it's like heavy metal people are the ones who shoot up schools and do all these satanic rituals, which has largely been debunked to be not the case. So it's interesting. I feel like that may have been the larger point, or one of the director's larger point, where you see Jesus, killing the bad guy with a fucking guitar, and he loves metal music, and it's like it's that kind of thing, but it doesn't ooze the weird tension of, is this paranormal or is this mental illness? And that's still what I'm saying is your analysis of not liking the end, it's the same for me too, because that's where I think it kind of gets away from what I think the meaning of the film is.
You know what I almost thought too at the end when he kills the serial killer, when he looks up at his daughter in the bed's fire and everything,
that he was gonna fucking kill her.
He looked like he was gonna kill his daughter. He looked fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
I was like, what's happening right now?
That's why I didn't like the ending, because it looked like it and it would have fit so well my argument. But it just was like, we're going to put it like a nice little pretty bow on it.
Yeah, it felt like an action movie showed up at the end of the film. And it was like, let's do this cool action scene from Die Hard or something.
Because I was talking to my students about this recently, where it's like Western Hollywood, just popular movies in general, have a very hard time with decaying morals. Like, they can't hold them very well. Like, they can include them, but it still feels like we have production code left over from the 1960s, like where we have anything amoral needs to have a good moral ending because we are run by fucking Catholicism.
Bad endings. Yeah, you can't have a sad ending. This does feel like this was tested or something, like pre-audience.
Yeah, and then they didn't fucking like it.
And they hated the ending. They're like, change it.
Which is probably why we like everything up until maybe 3/4 of the way through, where it does feel like it's starting to fall apart.
Yes. This is speculation, by the way. We have no idea.
Oh, I know.
What?
See, the Gregorian chant in my mind is
Oh yes, and then he like tells his daughter through like the power of love to just jump over the bed and over the flames to him, and then they both walk. They just casually walk to the ladder, and then they walk down, and they're totally fine. Like a little 16-year-old girl and a man who's been shot. Oh, it's so. And then they get out, and they're like, "Hey, we did it!" And then he goes, oh, "I'm having a vision," and then he finds out that there are more bodies. Okay. When it first happened, he goes like near the house and he just gently brushes away some dirt and he finds a bunch of suitcases, which implies that the serial killer, either he or someone else, has been killing more people for this evil entity. And that actually supports your schizophrenia mental illness thing, is because he's been doing this already. He didn't just start with killing his parents.
And he's overridden with guilt.
Yes.
That's why he starts playing the guitar. But then, like, again, that just feeds into my argument, because what is guilt but something that is taught specifically by Catholicism?
So yeah, like as a reveal, them finding the extra bodies, I was kind of like, what? Who cares? What a lame final thing. Because he was like, is it going to be a twist or something? I don't know.
What becomes the anomaly at that point is, why is Dad hearing that voice? And then that kind of makes me feel like something that you kind of brought up, where it's like, maybe it's not Satan at all. Maybe like that chanting is like, that's the other thing too.
He could be hearing something else.
Well, he could be hearing something else, but like that I like that ambiguity, and I didn't really think about that until you brought it up, where it's like, it could be Satan, it could also be fucking God.
Yeah, maybe God is telling him to go find these kids. He's showing him the murdered images to make him go stop the serial killer.
Which is incredible. You have, like, it's a double-edged thing here, where you have, you know, the ambiguity between mental illness and Christianity, or the ambiguity between, is this evil presence God, or is this evil presence Satan?
So maybe there's just too many things going on in the film.
That's really what might be its major issue, because who says how God is going to reveal himself to you if you believe in that faith? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's a huge separate question that I haven't even considered yet. But that aids your argument. It's like, maybe this film is a little more ambitious than we think it is.
Yeah.
Because if it, or maybe we're just thinking, maybe our argument is becoming too ambitious, because that's a completely different lane that we can totally go study. But, you know.
But yeah, it does seem like there's more going on here than meets the eye, which is interesting to me. So why don't we talk about
the most horrifying scene in the movie?
Yeah, let's talk about some of the other scenes in the film.
Okay, so here's one that we should talk about like immediately, because we've already brought up the ending scene, and the ending scene takes place where?
At the house.
Yeah, but where specifically?
In the bedroom, I guess.
Yeah. On top of what?
Her bed.
Yeah. Isn't there another more horrifying scene in this film that has to do with the bed?
No, I can't recall. I don't know what you're talking about.
This scene bamboozled me, because I'm like, there's no way that she's seeing things, because it wouldn't make any sense if the girl started seeing things, right?
Yeah.
But it seemed like it was going to be a dream because of how outlandish this plot point is, but it works so well, I think. So essentially what happens is Pruitt, Taylor Vince's character, the serial killer, he sneaks into the house at night and crawls into the fucking bed with this girl, and he's like, I don't want to hurt you. You're special. And then she wakes up and she starts screaming. He puts his hand on her face. He's like, I don't want you to yell, because if you yell, I'm going to have to do the things I don't want to do to you. And I don't want to do those things because you're special. He's telling me to do things and I don't want to because I think you're special. And then he's like, if I let go, are you going to be quiet? And she's like, yeah. And of course she's not quiet. She starts screaming at the top of her lungs. But just the image of him just crawling into bed with her is so insane and out there that I'm like, there's no way that this is fucking real, but it has to be real because it wouldn't fit the plot otherwise.
Yeah, it was fucking intense. It was out of control. What I thought was interesting, because I thought they were setting up the daughter, like you said earlier, like maybe she has an illness too, with the whole guitar thing. Because I thought, I completely misread this entire film. I thought the art, if you had an ambition or whatever, any kind of music, painting, drawing, I thought the devil was coming to you and being like, hey, I'm going to help you become really, really good at what you do, but also I'm going to have you kill some people and do some devil shit. That was not the movie at all. So I thought his daughter was gonna like start getting really good at guitar or whatever, or like, you know, play like the other guy.
That I like
playing.
that. Okay, so I like this a lot too. So she's into heavy metal. She loves Kirk Hammett from Metallica. It's her favorite guitarist ever. And she finally gets a guitar. And you would think
terrible.
you would think that like, you know, she has like I love how they play it so well that she's so bad at guitar, and it's
was
so
really
endearing. That made me feel like it was endearing. And just like you said at the end, where it's like, you know, or no, not the end, but like how the dad and the daughter are bonding over heavy metal music.
Yes.
I like, even though it feels unrealistic, that made me feel really good. I did like that relationship a lot.
Okay. It's some stuff was endearing, other stuff it just kind of made me groan and roll my eyes. It fluctuated.
So you didn't like her being terrible?
Oh yeah, I like that. I like that moment. I think some of it was how distracting the dad looked, because I liked him as an actor, but the whole Jesus motif was so on the nose, and it just looked so obvious to me that was not his real hair and not a real beard.
This is one of the first quotes on IMDb, or the first trivia is like, and he's wearing a wig. It's like, yeah, I fucking know that.
Yeah, anyone
it's like
with
so
eyeballs
perfectly
can see
bell
that.
shaped. It's like, we're gonna get this Jesus wig.
I don't know.
And we're gonna paint it red.
Some stuff like that kind of took me out of the movie. It's like, why don't you just get somebody with long hair and a beard? I don't know. It could have been a real beard. I don't know. So, but yes, that scene was crazy. And he doesn't manage to escape. And then the scene with when he goes to the park to kill those kids. Jesus Christ, man.
Oh, yeah.
So when I was watching it, and they show the scene where he kills the two little kids at the park, I didn't understand why he was doing that, because I thought it had to do with his music and him getting better at the guitar and like playing the sound or whatever, finding whatever Satan wanted him to find. I thought the devil's candy was, I'm alluring you with talent and power, kind of like, you know, the devil went down to Georgia, you know, the fiddle thing, or like, I'm gonna teach you how to be good, but then you're gonna have to do bad things, or I'm gonna steal your soul. But it wasn't that at all.
Well, I mean,
it was about this mental illness thing you're saying, and it's like, I missed the whole fucking point of the movie, I feel, and it hurt my
that makes a lot of sense
with the film.
That makes a lot of sense. Like, that would hurt your experience of the film. It's just, to me, it feels like, I don't know, like, because of how droney that guitar was, it really felt like it just that's what made sense. It's like, I'm going to completely lose myself in this and forget about any, because like, if you play your guitar that loud and that droney, it's like you are definitely in a different place. You're in a different state.
Yeah, he couldn't even hear after he did it when his mom was talking to him. So here's a few things I want to talk about. He kills his parents, right? The murderer guy. He smacks his mom in the head with, I don't know, a rock or something. I don't know. And she falls down the stairs. And then it cuts to the dad just walking in. We don't find out how the dad died. They just say the dad killed himself.
Yeah.
Don't the police know that the son has been living there? Like, they'd see his room and be like, someone else has been living here. What the fuck, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do they not suspect him at all in this murder? An obvious murder of, like, blunt force trauma to the head.
That is the first question for sure. But then the second question then becomes, the realtor is like, all right, so by law, I gotta let you know of any deaths that have been happening in this house.
It seems like he lied for
well,
sure.
yeah, because like he says it's, you know, it's a suicide and then, or
accidental death
and suicide.
The mom fell down the stairs and then the father killed himself out of grief.
But like you're saying, it's like
bullshit.
Everybody should know about this, because it seems like this is a small community. Everybody should know
this would be a huge story.
Everybody should know that this kid is still there, unless the parents kept him secret from everybody.
But that's not established.
Ever.
And then the time difference doesn't make sense. Okay, so how long does it take to clean up a house and put it on the market, you would think, right? Months? I don't know. It'd be a while. How long has this guy been in a fucking hotel, the villain? He's just been staying in a hotel every day and playing his guitar?
I see. I was under the assumption that maybe he went back to the mental institution.
I don't think so. They never show him leaving a mental institution.
Good point.
And if he did go to the mental institution, they probably would have found out what had happened, because they're like, weren't you with your parents? Then they go to him, they're all dead.
So I immediately thought that was the case. Like, everybody found out, but they kept that part hush hush and just kind of, let's not say the whole story to try to sell this house. You know, that's what I thought happened. But I was thinking too much.
I just think everyone was actually that stupid, and they thought it was a murder-suicide and everyone just forgot about this guy. I don't know. It didn't make any sense. And then them going there, looking at the house and buying it. You know how long that fucking takes?
Mm-hmm.
It takes a long time to like, because they would just got there with the realtor.
Now, hold on.
Now, hold on.
I know what you're thinking. Should I buy this house? Even though that somebody had died in it. But let me tell you, that's why it's so different in price. And I got the next showing at 11.
Yeah, yes, sure you do.
Why don't you sit back, listen to this chanting for a second, and make up your mind.
I loved how that guy was like, "Oh, I got so much more people looking to buy this house." The Jesus Dad should have been like, "Bullshit, you don't got fucking anybody seeing this house, you fucking asshole." Because there's so many people who would not want to live in a murder house. You know, I don't know, but there's some people who would, I guess.
I wouldn't mind living in a murder house. Oh.
So that shit was dumb. I was already the very beginning of the film, this type of thing is going on and is bothering the shit out of me. Like the time frame, I don't get it. Has he been out this whole time? How does he have money to be in a hotel for weeks and weeks? So the idea of Belial as the art gallery, who's like, we really like your dark and morbid paintings. We want you to become extremely famous. Please drink the oldest cognac in the world with me and ignore your daughter. Don't pick her up from school. Yeah, stay with me. I'm obviously not Satan. I love that.
Yeah.
I think they should have went further. Like really establish that these guys are fucking like make it so that it's really devils and like, because that supports my claim of famous, like people gaining skill, like you're really good at guitar, so then the devil shows up and is like, hey, I want to sign you for a record label, but you know, it's like you do murder and
you know,
stuff.
that could have factored into the whole my whole argument too, where it's like, you know, you think you're getting better because of this strange paranormal thing that you've made with, you know, the supernatural being of the devil, but you know, you can easily get better after a couple months with practice. If you had that mental instability, you wouldn't understand either way what happened. Like you would think, oh, I got better because I actually made the deal.
But like none of that pans out. He's just kind of like, oh, I choose my family over this. There you go. Like, nothing supernatural happens. So why set it up that way unless they just did it just because?
I mean, they may have just done it just because. Like you said, like it could very well be just like a test audience didn't like a couple of things, and a lot of things changed as a result.
So it's that line between, is this about mental illness or are we trying to do some weird Jesus allegory shit?
Okay, so here's what I think. I think they were just trying to do weird Jesus allegory shit, but once they did that, there's no way I can't not see it in the way that I see it, you know? So my argument may just be something completely, you know, that I'm making up, but I feel like it makes a lot of sense.
In conclusion, for me, I think this is final thoughts right here. There's a good movie in here.
Yeah, it's just you have to like.
I just think it's bogged down by a lot of things.
Which I will agree with. Like I said, like there are so many things that could be a lot better. It's just, you know, you have to either forgive it or not.
Yes, and I take back what I said about this film being like Deathgasm. The only connections I can see is the heavy metal.
Music.
These movies are doing, now that you've explained a lot of things to me, a lot, like way different types of films. Totally different things. They only really have the rock music in common. Yeah. So did you still enjoy the movie, right?
I did. It's worth watching. It doesn't get to a point where it's unbearable. It just does get kind of laughably bad towards the end, but even then, I still think it's bearable.
Yeah, I sat through it and I enjoyed most of it except for that ending. But you know, it's a fine watch. It's not bad. So Danny, I believe you have a movie.
I do. I have a question for you, Jared. I'm going to ask you if you've ever seen a movie that I'm about to, because if you have, I'll watch it by myself. I'm not going to assign it.
I swear to God, Dan, if you say Hold the Dark,
no.
Don't make me watch that movie again.
It's called,
it's like 2 hours
it's
long.
from 2013. It's part of the Shia LaBeouf renaissance, called Charlie Countryman.
Nope.
Or The Necessary Death of Charlie Countryman. Okay, so this was recommended to me by one of my students from my night class. And she said it's one of my favorite movies ever. And I looked at it. It's violent and it's also romantic. And it has Shia LaBeouf in it, but it also has Mads Mikkelsen. So I'm kind of excited.
Hell
So
yeah.
here is the synopsis. A young American falls hard for a Romanian cellist whose father has recently died and whose violent past could bring about his own demise. And Shia LaBeouf is the
LaBeouf-assance.
LaBeouf-assance, yes.
Yes.
He's all rugged in this movie. But apparently this film is pretty awesome from how this girl was selling it to me. So
Okay.
I'm
into
looking
it.
forward to it.
I love me some Mads Mikkelsen,
Yeah, I know,
boy.
Mads Mikkelsen is
I
fantastic.
tell you what.
Although I didn't quite understand his presence in Rogue One.
What? So, guys, I hope this was something. Hearts and kisses to all of you. Please find us where you're going to find us. Give us a 5-star review on iTunes if you want to. That'd be nice. We're on Podbean, being hosted. Old Boys Podcast at podbean.com. Hit us up. Let us know. What other fucking things are we on, Dan? I always forget. Twitter.
We are on Spotify. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. We're on Stitcher Premium. Yes, Stitcher
Is
Premium.
it all just Old Boys Podcast?
Yeah, Old Boys _podcast for Twitter. Old Boys Podcast for Instas. And yeah, just Old Boys Podcast, guys.
Yeah.
Make all
you
them
can
other
find
boys
us.
go away. We're the only boys that need to be in your life right now.
So, Danny, you have the final word. Go ahead.
You know, I just gotta just hold on a second. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, can't hear anything.